We're Arctic Monkeys. This is Don't Believe the Hype.
That rock and roll, eh? Ladies! That sound means it's the end of the round. Time for the bonus question. Cheers, dude. That man just yawned. We're gonna call it,
Don't Believe the Hype.
Hello and welcome to Don't Believe the Hype. Me joined. This just in. It's Justin.
It's me. I'm back.
How's on for you? He's back, and we're here to talk about the 20th. God, it's depressing. The 20th
I know.
anniversary. It's so bad. It's like what?
Just say the
What?
the anniversary. Just one of the anniversaries.
Just one of the
I
anniversaries.
know, 20 years. Oh my god.
I know it's scary that. 20 years of 5 minutes with Arctic Monkeys, the EP that was released back when they were just up and coming, I guess. Up and coming.
Yeah.
Just before they exploded. Or I suppose they kind of had exploded at this point, and then they further exploded and continued to explode, and then hugely explode with AM. And then I don't know where we're at now, but it's all exploding for me.
Hopefully
but,
they'll explode again this year.
I think so. I think I've got a feeling the next album is going to be an exploder. But this is kind of more going to be guided by Justin, because obviously you've heard my thoughts on this before, but I'm going to chip in and I've got questions for Justin. But like, you obviously, as it's an anniversary one, it makes sense to get someone else's perspective on it as well. And Justin has a very different perspective on this EP and stuff. So we'll be doing that. But so Justin, in terms of as we established in the getting to know you, the middle of adventure episode, you started with the album. So
Yes.
5 minutes was something that you went back to, presumably.
Yeah, I went back to it later. I remember probably after Favorite Worst Nightmare, as they were releasing new B-sides for that, I went back and discovered Beneath the Boardwalk and then this as well, and used to just have them on my iPod, in some kind of configuration between those. And this is actually one that Fake Tales, at least, not necessarily Ritz, but this is one that I kind of preferred to listen to with the Beneath the Boardwalk kind of songs, honestly.
Yeah.
You know how much I like the Frankenstein albums a lot, but yeah, I think this, I'll get into this more a little bit later about the release, but I think this was very kind of perfect to release this EP when they did. And we've talked a little bit about in some bonus content about in the machine about Alex being young and kind of coming up, and the scene he was in at the time. And I think that this was really strategic and interesting for their kind of first official release, this song, these two songs actually together. So yeah, it's a good representation, I think, of the scene at the time.
Yes, they do have a certain vibe to them, don't they? Both of them. I mean, we'll talk about I think the way that we're going to structure it, because I don't have a really relationship with the release either. Even though I'd been given Beneath the Boardwalk, this one kind of passed me by. I think I remember the next big release being the album or the single for Dance Floor. I don't recall this one as much, but I was like 14, 15, so I wasn't exactly, and the internet wasn't as big as it is. Social media didn't exist then, so it wasn't like if I didn't know, I wouldn't know. Do you know what I mean? And I wasn't always out in music shops, so I think this one passed me by, and it was a limited release. So, but yeah, certainly cool to listen to. But I think the order will probably be: we'll listen to each track, we'll discuss them in order that they appear of the two. But first, shall we get some brief information on the release before we do that?
The information action ratio is the place to go.
So, 5 minutes with Arctic Monkeys, released on the 30th of May 2005, 20 years ago. Don't say it again. Don't say it again. It featured a re-recording of fan favourite Fate Tales of San Francisco and a new song and B-side, From the Ritz to the Rubble. It was a limited release by Bang Bang Recordings, a label created by the band for the sole purpose of releasing the single. The name Bang Bang was muted as a replacement band name on the basis that the name Arctic Monkeys sounded silly. Only 1,500. Have you? That's a good part from your perspective. Have you ever thought that's a stupid name, like when you first heard them?
Arctic Monkeys?
Yeah,
No,
I never
had
thought
a
it.
problem
I
with
don't
the
know.
name. I know, I never
neither did I. I always thought, oh, that's cool. I know that,
Which
like,
is, yeah, I mean, I could, if somebody said that they thought it was stupid, I could be like, yeah, okay, I get that. But it never truly bothered. Like, I never gave it a thought, honestly.
my point is that any band name is shit until you're a famous band. Like, we can all go, oh, that sounds like a good band name, but
Yeah.
like, you can name any, like, you know, like Radiohead is just like Radiohead. Sounds stupid, but then they're Radiohead. So, do you know what I mean? Like, it's
okay,
like it's okay. So, Arctic Monkeys works because it's the Arctic Monkeys. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I was in a band called High Definition. If you want to talk about shit band names. So, and the 2511s was another band name I was in because that was the one with Nick. 2511s because our first ever practice was on the 25th of November.
Oh,
Because
there
of
you go.
25,
I was about to say,
11,
what's up with that? Yeah.
Very odd. So yeah, it's all relative, I guess. It's all relative. Only 1,500 CDs and 1,500 vinyl copies were made available, meaning the single is now rare and increasingly sought after by the fans of the band. Both tracks were re-recorded and included on the band's debut album. As we know, the record label Bang Bang Recordings Limited was originally incorporated on the 31st of May 2005 with their registered office at 1 Conduit Street in London. The band utilised a dedicated startup firm to assist in the creation of the company. They then signed a contract with record label Domino Records later that month. So this was before they signed the contract with Domino. The company remains owned by the members of the Arctic Monkeys to this day, with manager Ian McAndrew as director. The current location of Bang Bang Recordings is 41 Great Portland Street, London. So yeah, so it's completely set up for that. It's interesting that they set that up the day after this was released, which is a weird order to do it, but there you go. So not much information from me there. Do you have anything you'd throw under information at this point, or?
So I did. So since we talked about the limited release, I did try to look up what it would cost to buy one of these. I found a vinyl on eBay. So this isn't like super official or anything, but do you want to have a guess at what you think a vinyl might go for these days?
Are we in dollars or pounds?
It was in pounds.
Okay, I reckon this one could go for £250.
It was 217.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah, so super close. Yeah.
Is it bad that part of me goes like, "Oh, that's okay. I could do
Yeah, I do. I was on it. I was like,
that."
if I
mean,
had, let's just say this: if I had everything else and I just felt like that was the last kind of piece, I'd be like, all right, I'm gonna do it. I'm an adult. I'm an adult who's collecting a 20-year-old vinyl singles.
The problem is the fake tales on the EP the one that ends up on the album?
No,
It's not. So it is technically different tracks, right? So
it is.
It's not the one that's on Beneath the Boardwalk.
Yeah. It's not. It's different.
So it is a different track. So it is kind of like, well, you know.
I know. Yeah.
So I don't know. But I mean, I spent £30 on a David Bowie single. For that, it's going to be me that I mentioned in the Q&A episode, the B-side of that on vinyl. But 200 quid, yeah. I don't know. It feels like one that's a joint decision between me and my girlfriend. I don't think I could make that splurge without her being
Feels
pissed.
like one of those moments where you're just in some state where you're like, I have to treat myself to something. I'm going to get this audiobook, you know?
Yes. Well, maybe when I get the money free for a certain script. The thing is, there's loads of Arctic Monkeys vinyls I need to collect. I'm so behind on the Arctic because I got into vinyl later.
Yeah, that's true.
I've got all the like albums and some of the EPs, but the singles and stuff, I'm way like behind on. So yeah, it's difficult. But so you don't have one then? That was one of my questions. Was
I do not. I do not have one.
So yeah, do you have any other information that you would throw into
no,
the script?
I have some games we'll play, but I think it's better to get into it when we actually get into the specific songs themselves to kind of separate. Yeah.
Okay. Well, before we jump into those songs then, and by the way, this episode, if nothing else, is kind of the epitomation of the new segment in next series. Isn't it really? So
yeah.
the jingle we got there. This is kind of
where we're going to be comparing, to like older versions, and actually that's going to be a big part of my discussion today too. Is like these different versions, as we just mentioned. So we have two versions of Rich the Rebel, this one, and then the one that ended up on the album, and then we have 3 versions of Fake Tales of San Francisco, and I have very specific notes about what pieces of each one I like and don't like.
Okay. Well, in case you missed it, it's coming up. But let's have a review from the time when it was released of this one. So, Drowned in Sound said, the uninformed, this Sheffield quartet have been causing a buzz. Sorry, for the uninformed, this Sheffield quartet have been causing a buzz of late in the capital with some boisterous and overpopulated live performances. Shows so packed that even Steve Lamacq, yes, the Steve Lamacq, couldn't get in. He's a UK radio DJ who does a lot of... He had a show called Steve Lamacq Live, or he'd have bands on to do sessions in the evening as a fly. It was a good show.
Okay.
On BBC Radio. It's a great to hear from that point of view at the time. Like, this Sheffield quartet have been causing a buzz. Like, they're not who they are yet.
That's wild.
Fake Tales, featuring a riff so simple yet so addictive it hurts. It's 3 minutes of the Monkees doing what they do best, namely offering sharp but funny social commentary in a South Yorkshire patois over bursts of punky, poppy, sometimes ska-inflected guitar, with lyrics like "You're not from New York City, you're from Rotherham." They might just be the antidote to the pop tones roster. From the Rich to the Rubble, describing encounters between overzealous bouncers and inebriated clubbers, starts slowly with a spoken introduction but ends frantically with overdriven guitars all over the shop. It's the nearest you can get to their live show without actually being there. One for Mr. Lamacq, then. If 5 minutes without the Monkees is this much fun, God help us when the Little Blighters finally get around to releasing an album. And, crucially, before we get into the tracks, some people were really pissed about the album because they'd heard all 90% of the songs before. Some people were like, we want new material, which is something that will be addressed. We do have some John Kennedys from the time for this episode. We got bringing John back just before we bring him back full time. But yeah, so it's interesting. But so, are we going to start with Fake Tales?
Yeah. Let's start with Fake Tales.
Well, let's have a little listen to a live performance from the time, then, shall we? I apologize for the sound, but as you can imagine, in 2005, this is the best you can
Phones
get.
were not what they were.
Phones
back
were not what
then.
they were. New.
We have 2 of the Monkees with us tonight.
I went John early. John, get back in your box. Get back in your box, John. He's creeping out. We keep him chained up for the summer.
It's amazing, also all that's left is the proof that love's not only blind but deaf. It's yours in San Francisco from Hunter's Bar.
Oh, the nostalgia, the waves of nostalgia. God, I do miss
yeah.
that. I do miss that time. That one's all right, actually. That one was professionally recorded, so that one's not too bad. It's the Ritz one that we have to apologize for the sound for. But so then, Justin, Fake Tales, take us away, boys.
All right, so actually, this is one that honestly, I guess this will kind of start this one with a hot take, honestly. But I actually think that this version of Fake Tales out of the 3 is my favorite to listen to. I would prefer to listen to this one.
She flicks a red hot revelation off the tip of her tongue.
Really? So out of the,
There it
you
is.
know
hot
what?
take, yeah.
You know what? I'm going to agree with you. Actually, I always thought this. Although my only the way the lyric is fucking in this one, though, right?
I can't
in
tell
this
you
version.
that. That's going to be part of the game later.
Oh, okay. Because if this one isn't the fucking one, then it can't be my favorite because I really think that, and he's not having a very nice time makes me laugh more than I like it. I just find that quite cute, and that actually gets addressed in the John Kennedy that we'll be listening to later on.
Yeah.
So go forward to that. But I do think particularly the drums sound better in this version. I think in my opinion. So I would agree with you. I always thought this one was more ferocious, and like the guy said, it captures the live sound better, I think.
Yeah, not only does it capture the live sound better, but what I would say is for the album, since I didn't talk about the cover, or I didn't share anything during the whatever people say I am season, is that Fake Tales, I always really appreciated Fake Tales from a lyrical standpoint, and it matched
Oh, yeah.
songs on the album, mostly like Vampires, which is, even though I really like Vampires, it's one of my least favorite on the album, and it does have more of that biting style. I really appreciated the lyrics, but musically, the way that song is recorded, particularly the like the rhythm guitar, is too sharp. And I think that's true for the Beneath the Boardwalk version too. And I think this one has the perfect mix of like Alex's voice. And yeah, I don't know. This one just sounds better to me for what this song is.
Yeah, I mean, I tend to agree with you. I was going to ask you actually lyrically, because again, this was, as people know, my obsession with Alex's lyrics. This was Fake Tales was certainly one of the ones that I was obsessed with lyrically. So Fake Tales of San Francisco to you coming from America, how did that kind of come across? Because he's obviously saying like the bands locally that aren't, which is, this is a stick to beat them with now, because people are like, oh, and then you went to America, which I think is really unfair, because the sort of principles and stances that you take when you're like 17, 18 are so different to ones that you take now. Do you know what I mean? Like, I used to be such a stick in the mud.
Yeah, I really do. I did want to ask you though, especially because we're doing these new jingles with the American expressions and the British expressions. Do you in Britain, do you use the expression posers? Do you guys use that one?
We do use that one, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, like sort of people posing on the scene, like you sort of, yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Okay, I didn't know. So my thoughts on this song in general, and I'll get into, I guess, why I think this is an interesting release for them, especially considering Beneath the Boardwalk and then also the album and opinions of the album, and like people kind of mad, like you said, we've heard 90% of the songs, but then what songs were included? So this, we talked about The Machine recently on a bonus episode. If you want to hear that, sign up on Patreon to hear us talk about Alex feature. And what this song sounds like to me, especially considering it was debuted, I think, around 2004. So it was around, it was on Beneath the Boardwalk in a much rougher version. And it makes sense for me for them to release this song at this time, because as we did in the intro episode, I played in a band in high school and in college. And so I know what a small town kind of scene can feel like, especially from a group of young people at this time. Like too, bands were a bigger deal. Like the whole like self hip hop wave had not really taken off yet, because the technology wasn't really there to have it easily.
Yeah,
so being in a band and being influential in a band was a much bigger deal. And this song captures that feeling of being young and like gatekeeping a little bit. It's important to represent your home scene, and to have kind of pride in that, and to know who the underground people are, and to go out and support them, and to know their deepest cuts, and stuff like that. And I think that it's really smart for them to release this as a one while they're building that wave of people that they want to kind of come out to the shows,
Yeah. And to pick up on that, I think, look, it's obviously, they're gigging at the time, and they've committed. So Alex was supposed to go to Manchester Uni to do English literature, and he said to his parents, I'm going to take a year out and see what happens with this band. And then it did work out. and they're gigging and they're seeing these bands in the scene, and they're committed to it. They're gigging every night. They're trying to do their own thing. They're trying to be authentic. And it's that young thing where you're getting passionate by being authentic and, like you say, gatekeeping. And there's bands there with the trilbies and they're drinking white wine and they're in the toilets. These kind of, when I was as someone as well, it's a kind of a northern thing here as well. If you're a poser or a pretentious, as I've said before, like I used to see people out in trilbies out and all that kind of white wine. I'd be like, oh fucking hell, I'm the same. And it's obviously like of that time, and you see these bands, and look, he's just a weekend rock star. He's not doing it every night like us. And you do get annoyed and passionate about stuff like that, then, don't you? Which is why I think it's unfair, and that's why I speak to so many young people at the time, like you say, because that is the time when you're most passionate and gatekeepery of things, and it's why it's unfair to beat them with a stick as they got older and fall in love with American culture and stuff like that. Obviously, for a time, because it's like, well. Yeah, we all get the shit that I used to get impassioned and enraged about when I was 18, and like not like die on that hill, like be like, no, everyone has to agree with me. That I just wouldn't do now. I don't give a shit. Now I'm like, oh, you don't agree with me, I don't care. So it's like, you know, it's such, like you say, it's over time completely. It's authentically young. This song, it's authentic. No one past the age of 20 could have written this song. It's not possible.
Yes, but it's also important too to know when he wrote it in his life, because if you consider that this was on Beneath the Boardwalk, he wrote it in 2004 and then spent the next 2 years in this scene that he is kind of defending in this song. And then he releases an album where one of the few new songs that's released on that is Vampires, that completely flips the perspective and essentially kind of attacks that scene in a very biting kind of way. You get to see even a little bit of growth there, and I think that is important to note of that change in difference, because he'll make comments too about Dance Floor. Okay, so Dance Floor was the first single from the first album, and I think it's important to note that this single was important for building the crowd that led up to the first album, but the first album stood on the shoulders of a dancey pop song that was a lot more accessible than what this biting, critiquing song was. And Vampires kind of flips that idea of like, okay, fuck your gatekeeping kind of, you know, you're all kind of standing on bullshit a little bit. You're all vampires, like, you're just kind of parasites feeding off of this in a way. I think that really does show a lot of growth in those 2 years, honestly.
And also being bittered by people's reactions in Vampires. That's why I think we said at the time, you know, I've experienced that when I was doing stand up or doing stuff like this, or that, things that people don't see as normal paths to like jobs or whatever. You say it and they're kind of like, oh, what, how much are they paying you? What are you doing that for? Like that, you know, that kind of thing. He captured that brilliantly, that kind of reaction that you get. But then when you do make it, those people are like up your ass, like all of a sudden.
Yeah.
Like, that's good. So yeah, no, there is a big difference. You're quite right, because what he wrote this in. Did you say 2000?
It was debuted, I think the first time it was ever played was in 2004, and we talked about, you know, him probably looking up and being around people like John, who were a lot more critical, and even Andy having that having that perspective of like the local scene and everything like that. But as I think it really highlights that even when this EP was dropped, they were growing, but they weren't that big. But then by the time the album comes out, he kind of gets a taste of his own medicine a little bit. But I think instead of like doubling down, kind of like what John does, I think it shows growth to say like, yeah, I had that perspective. I wrote this 2 years ago, but I'm also now going to write a song that flips it and kind of points it at my younger self in a kind of way, you know?
There was also that thing on the Machine episode, go subscribe, where somebody had said that the difference between him and John was that John clearly has an affection for the people in his songs, like the working class heroes, whereas Alex is scathing at them, which kind of I was connected with more because I grew up in a similar place and it was so scathing at them as well. So there is that sort of difference in their style as well. But yeah, I mean, I've always said that. And then by the time we get to Favorite Worst Nightmare, he's doing it in a different way from a different place, and he's always developed his position on stuff. And people don't like that. People want you to stay the same for some reason. Whereas I think
they want to
you
latch on to your ideas, but then when you change your ideas, then
They
it's
don't
pointed
like
at
it,
you.
which
Yeah,
is-
yeah, yourself.
which is
yeah.
weird because surely the whole point of life and aging is growing new perspectives.
to grow.
Like,
yeah.
Like, I hate that thing when somebody tries to catch you out. They'll say, you change your opinion on something, and you'll go, oh, you change your opinion. And I'll go, yeah, because I've been presented with new information that changed my opinion. That's what you're supposed to do. That's
Yeah.
what a healthy person does. You don't just stubble down on something when you're presented with information. You change it and you go, yeah, I didn't know that before. Now I do. I've been educated. Thank you. Like, you know what I mean? But yeah, so that's what I've always liked about him as well. His development is kind of easily trackable through that as well.
Yeah.
I think as well on but I mean, what I meant was like, yeah, so the Poser. So this song is one of the ones that obviously you said the clubbing and going out stuff kind of translated because you were going out all the time with this from your cultural point of view. But there's obviously a lot of specific stuff in the songs that maybe doesn't translate as well, which is why when we do go back and cover more of the early stuff, it'll be interesting. But this one is easily transferable to America, I would imagine.
Yeah, I mean, it specifically and the thing that's difficult that I want to point out too is since I did grow up playing in bands, it felt very relatable to me, which was quite interesting because you're right, the references, it's very British, and but it's still very relatable. And again, a lot of the key lyrics here were quite interesting to me as well. And at the time, honestly, I felt a similar kind of way, like. And I think that that's why this one is important to say, like, this was directed at kids going out to see local bands. Hey, this is our first release. And that's why it's important. Whereas the first album, the first single is not Fake Tales of San Francisco. It's I Bet You Look Good on the Dance Floor, which is a lot more accessible and is not, just selling to kids going out to see indie bands on the weekends, So I think that's an
definitely.
interesting distinction, just 1 year apart, essentially.
Yeah, and it's one of those. So Fake Tales of San Francisco is obviously the idea is that like a British band trying to be all American and unauthentic is a bit wanky.
Yeah.
Does that? Do you have that there where you like if somebody's trying to? Because obviously the British music culture influenced America. Is that if you so you were in a band that was influenced by Arctic Monkeys, and like I said, when we listen to one of those tracks, I can hear the guy singing. Although American, I can hear the Alex's accent breaking through. So like, I suppose you probably don't have that where you're like, oh god, these wankers are trying to sound like a cool British indie band. Like, it's not the same. So is Fake Tales of San Francisco not almost slightly offensive? To you? I don't know.
No, I don't think so, because I think it's more the way I always took it from my interpretation is, but there were always people who try to make like, oh, we went and toured in California, or we went in, it would usually be things like, oh, Seattle or New York,
the
or
grunge scene,
LA or something. So it's so really in the same kind of way, it would still be Fake Tales of San Francisco.
yeah.
Even from at least from my part of the States, of where, people are trying to make themselves sound bigger or more important than they actually are by, dropping like, oh yeah, we played in New York or we played in San Francisco or something like that. So it's still very relatable in that way, to me at least.
Do you think the place in America that you're from helped you understand the first album more? Do you think if someone was from, say, LA, they wouldn't necessarily, because I don't think the kind of working class point of view on this album is a million miles away, perhaps, from some of the world that you're in as well. I've always said a council state that I'm from is really just the same as like what would you say in America, like a trailer park. They're the same worlds, just in different ways. Do you know what I mean? I'm not saying you're from a trailer park, but like, I'm just saying, do you think that world is like, if you were from like New York might transpute because New York had the punk scene and this kind of lives in there a bit, but like, yeah, if you're from LA or somewhere, or I don't know, Texas, I don't know, do you think maybe Texas would? Do you have to be working class to get it? I guess I'm saying.
I think it helps. Yeah, I think it helps in some way, because there is this kind of like, don't treat me like less because you think you're better. Yeah, because you went there. It is very like biting and resentful. And one thing that's consistent about these kind of two songs, again, which I think is important for this release and building this momentum, is it's got this kind of underdog mentality tone, which other songs do too, like Bigger Boys and Stolen Sweetheart, for instance. That a song like I Bet You Look Good on the Dance Floor doesn't really have. That's about, you know, picking up a girl and not even necessarily getting rejected. It's about dancing and stuff. So this kind of like underdog mentality of getting picked on and kicked out of a club line, or, you know, or being looked down upon by a bigger band who says that they've toured in the States or something like that. That appeals to a lot more people in a scene where they're attaching their identity to local indie bands. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
So
Yeah. Yeah, and to be fair, the San Francisco thing isn't it's not a dig at American bands. It's a dig at British bands' authenticity. That's all it is. So it could have been anywhere really. It's just Fake Tales of San Francisco has a nice ring to it, I imagine. It's probably could have been anywhere in America, he said, but he's really just saying about being authentic and jumping on the bandwagon and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's an interesting song. I always sort of, it kind of spoke to you at the time, like you say, when you're young. It really does sort of click with you then. It's the only time that it could click with you in that way. But to be honest, the authenticity stuff never was really my big takeaway from the song, because I was never really, I mean, I was 15 when I heard this, so I wasn't out at gigs being part of the scene at the time. And I'd only just got into indie music, I think, this album that then led me to the Killers' first album and stuff, you know what I mean? So it was more like a year or so after, 2 years after, when I was like 17, 18, I would start going out drinking and going to clubs and stuff, that I became part of the scene more, I guess. So at the time, what I really took away from it was that segment of, from a writing point of view, I suppose, the whole, you know, a young girl's telephone beeps, she's dashing for the exit, or she's running for the streets outside. And then what I think is still one of his greatest lyrics ever, but his bird said it's amazing though, so all that's left is the proof that love's not only blind but deaf. Like, that blew my fucking mind when I first heard it, because I was like, whoa, this guy has taken the line of, you know, when you love, you're blind, so his girlfriend would love it, but because it's music, he's changed it, the line, to deaf. It's like, whoa, that is like insanely witty that I can't even comprehend.
And honestly, I think that line alone, there's some really good lines in here and some really good perspective. But if it weren't for that particular line alone, I would almost say that this song could have been cut from the first album, potentially, you know. But I think that line saves it, or it really represents, again, what some of the first album is about, is that kind of perspective of just seeing the world around you in that kind of way, and the way he's able to put it into those kind of simple but like deep lyrics. It's one of his best lines for sure.
Yeah, I think this song and a couple of others are the reason why there's some people that try and prove a theory that this is an entire concept album, which I disagree with. I don't think they've ever had an actual concept. I think they have a concept album in terms of a theme. Certainly, like, a lot of this is going out and being young. A lot of AM is going out, shagging women and getting pissed. A lot of Tranquility is well, anyway. But the whole concept album, I don't think it works because of this song is there, which doesn't. Some people say, oh yeah, he's at a gig that night, and I'm like, no, it doesn't track. It's overarching of a time. It's not about a specific night. I don't think Riot Van fits into that either. Riot Van feels more teenager at school vibe than being out at 18, and I don't think Vampires fits into it. So yeah, it doesn't. Mardy Bum doesn't really fit. I don't. Yeah, there's certain songs on there that are about a night out, but I don't think they all. It's like I don't think Tranquility is all about a hotel on the moon. I think 2 tracks on Tranquility are about a hotel on the moon, and that's it. To be honest. So yeah, they just have an overarching feel to their albums, don't they? They tend to. That's been my main problem with The Car is that it doesn't. It's the first one where I've gone, oh, that doesn't. Really have a feel to it, but yeah, and a couple on Suck It and See, I guess, but yeah, I don't know. It's you never considered it. Have you ever considered a concept like because a true concept album is a story on an album. That's what a concept album is. You have a story from track 1 to track 10, and you're telling that story. This doesn't tell a story as such.
I could see people thinking that, but I think also knowing the history is important. Knowing that a lot of these songs were written over a period of like 3 or 4 years really kind of, disproves that in a way. I don't think he was working on this concept album for 4 years, especially when he makes comments about I Bet You Look Good on the Dance Floor that says things like, we wrote this one day to make my friends laugh and I don't really think about it anymore. Like I don't think much about it. So I think that idea disproves that. But it is about that kind of way of life, a teenage way of life, but I don't think it's necessarily on purpose.
Most debut albums have a theme like that though, by the nature of when they're written. I think ultimately people's idea with that is if you take out Fake Tales and you take out Riot Van, you take out Mardy Bum, you take out Vampires, you take out When the Sun Goes Down, which is like half the album. The View from the Afternoon starts with a night out. The rest of it is the night out. Then Red Light Indicates Doors and Secures is going home in a taxi from the night out. And then From the Rich to the Rubble is reflecting on that night out after you didn't get into a club and the next day. And what we talked about last night didn't make so much sense. And then A Certain Romance could be seen as an overarching love of where you're from and the scene and that. So you can make that work if you take out half the album, but that does not work, obviously. So it just sets a narrative, So
it's cohesive.
It's cohesive.
But the theme.
It certainly captures a theme. It's a themed concept album, which is being young and going out and life as a teenager, but nothing more than that, I would say. In the same way that AM captures going out as a 28-year-old, things are much the same and much different, which we will explore in It's Nothing on the early stuff at the end of each episode. Because I do have a big connection between this album, or not 5 minutes, but the first album and AM. So
I have a game.
What else do you have to say on Fake Tales? Oh, we have a game. Well,
let's just play a quick little game.
Yeah, well, that kind of means that we have to hit the old bonus.
That sound means it's the end of the round. Time for the bonus question.
Okay.
There is one line in this song that is different in all 3 versions. So as we mentioned, there's Beneath the Boardwalk version, 5 Minutes with Arctic Monkeys version, and the version from the first album. So I'm going to read the line, and I want you to try to guess which version it's from.
Okay.
The line is, so which one is this one from? Which one am I going to go with? I'll throw you a bone on the first one. So the line is, the band were fucking wank and I'm not having a nice time. Which version do you think that's from?
I think that's from the album version.
Okay, you are correct. So again, that line is, the band were fucking wank and I'm not having a nice time. So now,
by the way, sorry, can I just ask it?
Yeah.
When you heard that, because you didn't use wank in America, right? So did you?
Yeah, I guess not.
Did you know that meant crap? Did you know that meent bad, terrible? Like what we said,
I think
wank.
I did. Yeah, I think I did.
Okay.
It's not something that I remember. There are a couple, especially View from the Afternoon sticks out in my mind. There are a couple references there. Oh, the Chop Shop Princess. I didn't know what that was. From
Top Shop Princess, because it's just a store here. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know what that was.
I suppose you didn't know where Hunter's Bar was, but you probably Googled
that. But that one, the context.
Rotherham.
Yeah, those are easy to kind of pick up on, but there are some things where like he'll say like the princess and you're like, I have no idea like what that even, I can't create an image in my mind even of like what that would be because it's so out of context.
I will say that although I say like it's not fair to beat them with the stick of this because it's a younger song in a different place, I understand why they absolutely can never play it live again because they
Oh
can't
yeah,
sing.
yeah,
They can't sing now because of the evolution they've been on. They can't sing. You're not from New York City. If you're from Rotherham, so get off your bandwagon. Like there's just not. You just can't anymore.
yeah.
The song is gone forever.
So well, and that's what I was gonna say too. Like when he says those things about
It didn't come back, did it? During the when
no, yeah, when he says those things about dance floor, I think that I absolutely believe him, and that's true. But I don't necessarily think he thinks that about Fake Tales. In some way I
No.
bet he's like in some like proud of Fake Tales, but also recognizing that
Oh,
even
yeah.
within a year or 2 years difference, that his opinion completely changed, and that's okay. Even before they traveled to America, I think
Oh.
his opinion completely changed. So I think that's completely fine.
Yeah, I think I think Dance Floor he doesn't think is great, but it's popular. And then around Suck It and See AM, they found a new love of performing it live because it got the crowd going, and they kind of fell back in love with it
Yeah.
again. But with Fake Tales, like you absolutely, they were playing it on the AM tour though. The last time it was played was 10th of July 2013 at Rocking Roma.
Oh, really?
So
Okay.
so it didn't matter that they were singing that American stuff while they were doing. But it's funny, interesting because we'll talk about this soon. But they never saw AM as a LA influenced album. They famously said we could have recorded it anywhere. But
Well,
I
he said
disagree
he wrote
with-
some
with
of it
them,
in
to
New
be honest.
York too, didn't he?
Yeah,
Or was that
yeah.
Suckin' and See?
I think that was Suck
Maybe
and
that was
See.
Suck
I think
and
it was
See.
all written in
Mixing it
LA.
up,
But he said
yeah.
we could have written it in London, is what they said. But and the Why Do You Want to Come In High video is in London. But I disagree. I actually this is one of the things where I disagree with the band. I think and I think you can disagree with the artist on the art, but like I just think that was. You don't even realize how much where you were in your life and where you actually were geographically influenced you. You don't even know that yourself, but I think it absolutely did. It really did. But I mean, it sounds like 2001, which is like one of the most famous LA West Coast albums
Ooh,
of all
we'll be
time.
talking about that
We'll
one
be talking
too.
about
That one
We'll
will
be
be,
talking
yeah.
about that one. Yeah, looking forward to that.
I think
Um,
before Why'd You Only Call Me When You're High specifically. Okay, so
Yeah.
two more. So I want you. So this one, which version do you think it's on? 5 minutes or Beneath the Boardwalk? The line is, the band aren't very good, and I'm not having a nice time.
I'm gonna go with. I think they recorded it because it needed to have radio play from 5 minutes of Arctic Monkeys. It wanted radio play, and they wouldn't be able to have fucking wankers radio play. So I think they recorded it on this one, 5 minutes of Arctic Monkeys, so it could get radio play. Maybe
That
not
is
on purpose.
correct.
But who knows?
But so now there's only one version left, and it's the Beneath the Boardwalk. Do you know how it's different?
I don't. I was trying to think actually. I can only think of fucking wank or what is it? Well, so what was the one you just said? The band aren't very good, and I'm not having a nice time.
Band aren't very good, and I'm not having a nice time.
No, I can't think of what it is.
It's a very, very small change. In the Beneath the Boardwalk version, he says the band weren't very good, and I'm not having a nice time. So difference between weren't and aren't.
Aren't, yeah. Well, there you go. The
There
northern
is
way of
one-
saying things.
Yeah, there is one more small change too. So in the Beneath the Boardwalk and in 5 minutes, he says his bird thinks it's amazing, and in the album version, he says, yeah, but his bird said it's amazing though. So all that's left. Very small change again, but
Ah, very nice. So yeah, I think we both agree Fate Tales is the better musical, or the better version is this one. Interesting that they recorded this in around May then, 2005, Jesus. And then not long after that, they went and recorded the album with Domino, and they recorded the album so fast with James Ford that they had to get another producer in and record it again. Yet the version of this is okay. So why was only a few months later the version? Or maybe it was like this one, and because when you listen to this one, it doesn't sound like a song that could be. It sounds like a scrappy EP that a band's released version, and
Yeah.
I like it. But could it be like a professional album? Maybe even this was too fast for the album. I don't know. Maybe they were like, this isn't how albums get done. I don't know. Or was
I
it
do
even
feel like
faster?
the album version is slower, and I don't like
Yeah.
it because of that. I
Even the
really do
drums at
think
the start,
this
right?
Version, yeah, I
Like,
think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, but how fast was it in this recording with James Ford? This album, like Legend had it. The whole thing was 20 minutes, and the album
Oh
is
my-
40
what?
minutes. So
Oh my
yeah,
God.
so I don't know. So I'd love to get my hands on those demos of how fast they were, and
Oh, me
Right.
too.
yeah.
So also
must have just
too,
played
I
it as a
wanted to
gig.
mention this is not the only song of theirs that I prefer from the older version from this era. I also prefer to listen to the Bigger Boys original recording. I don't
too.
like the new recording, and also Sticking to the Floor. I prefer the older version.
Yes, I agree. With Bigger Boys, it's the lyric differences, I think. So I actually like
yeah.
both in different parts. There's actually a perfect version that doesn't exist where you could splice all the lyrics that I prefer together. But I think the one he says she come round in her school. No, there's one. I think it's the original where he says like she's hanging around the shops or something like that, or the kind of pedo-y guy. And it's very interesting because there would get like when we were at school, there'd be like, and I think back now, I think that's wild. It wouldn't happen now, but there'd be like 22-year-old guys picking up girls that were in my year, like in their
High
car,
school.
their boyfriends, and they're like 15. And I think, what? Why was that allowed? What was going on there? But at the time, it seemed normal. But so yeah, there's some lyrics. Bigger Boys, I do prefer them. I really like the original Riot Van. As I said on that episode, I like the
it,
funny
not
funny
more,
cigarettes.
but I do like that it's different. It's so different, like completely different.
I think it's the person. I like the sound of the album one better. I think it sounds more more beautiful. But as we know, I have a personal kind of relation to that song. So it's the funny cigarettes line that's in the original that I love.
Yeah.
And the cigarette smoker is so different on Beneath the Boardwalk.
yeah,
It's
that
insane.
sounds
Like
completely different,
always
too.
like sort of lines about London gangsters and strippers that are nowhere near that. I prefer the EP version, I have to say. But yeah, if look, have we got anything else to say on Fake Tales at all? I think we've kind of.
No, not really.
If anyone wants full kind of dissection of that, we do have that in the catalog. If you're coming to us for the first time, you can go back to the first series. It was like that would have been the third episode, I guess, or the fourth episode after the intro one.
Fifth episode, because you
fifth
guys
is
did an
it?
intro episode and then a Beneath the Boardwalk
Oh, you're quite
total
right.
episode,
Yeah.
and then
See,
View from the Afternoon. Yeah, so
the
five.
fans always know more.
Yeah.
So yeah, it will be the fifth episode, series 1, episode 5. Fate Tales San Francisco is there, and we kind of do a deeper dive into it, like for like an hour and a half or something. So, but I think we've pretty much covered a lot of it anyway today. But yeah, very cool song. Still one that, like, when I listened to it yesterday and I was walking outside, I was like, wanted to be like, when it kicks in every time, or even though I'm on the middle of the street, I want to be like, doon, 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 shaking my head, like, yeah. It's a proper gig song. Love the podcast? Get even more with our exclusive Patreon content. For just £3 a month, extended versions of our episodes, in both video and audio, released a week early with pre-show album reviews specially selected to set the tone for each track. This era's artists include The Black Keys, Ashanti, Outkast, Black Sabbath, T-Rex, Elton John, Leonard Cohen, The Coral, Dr. Dre, Gorillaz, Queens of the Stone Age, and Aaliyah. Also every week, we use cutting-edge software to create AI-generated covers of each track by artists we've handpicked. Playback and commentary on official music videos for single releases. Enjoy acoustic or special live performance watch-alongs at the end of each episode. Post-show debriefs, including our new segment, It's Nothing on the Early Stuff, where we compare each track to the band's back catalogue. Plus, we regularly put out bonus content and watch-alongs. And for all you Shadow Puppets fans out there, upgrade to our £5 tier and get everything above, plus a monthly deep dive into a track from the last Shadow Puppets back catalogue, PLSP watch-alongs, and the chance to choose a non-Monkeys related track for us to cover in our usual format. So, join us now at patreon.com/Arctic Podcast and unlock the deeper cuts, behind the scenes chat, and the Arctic extras you won't find anywhere else. But that just brings us on to track 2, or classed as a B-side, weirdly. I just thought it was like an EP with 2 tracks on, but classed as a B-side. From the Ritz to the Rubble.
Well, last night there's 2 bosses and one of them's alright, the other one's a scary, and his way or no way, no totalitarian. He's got no time for you, looking or breathing out, he doesn't want you to. So get out the queue, that's exactly for you. There's all you can say. The heart is so free, the big way you play, and you realise that he's finding the sound. So what back and sit back down to the light.
Ooh, truly awful. Apologize to everyone.
It's bad, but I will say, damn, when that bass kicks in, god damn it, that's not his like
great
best
bass line.
line, dude.
Great
Holy
bass line in the
shit.
song. Well, there you go. This one, take us away.
Yeah, so okay, this version I do not think is as good as the album version,
Okay,
but
okay.
I do think sticking with that theme, this whole relatability type of thing that they're kind of selling at this point, not that they're manufacturing it, but to release these 2 tracks, because a lot of the early tracks are kind of funny. Curtains close.
Yeah.
If you're looking at what you have available to release on this kind of EP, curtains closed and choo choo and stuff like that, they're very funny, but
Yeah.
Fake Tales is serious and biting, and From the Ritz to the Rubble kind of comes in, and it is also kind of pointed in some way, not necessarily attacking anybody, but I mean, goddamn, if the lines of last night, what we talked about, it made so much sense,
yeah.
but now the haze has ascended, it don't make no sense anymore. Literally, anybody from any culture at any time, at any age, can relate to that line.
Yeah,
You know?
that whole being drunk, talking nonsense, and the next day being like, "What the fuck were we talking about?" It
Yeah.
sounded so poignant at the time. Like, yeah, I still do that now. And actually,
Yeah.
as well, on that, another one that's the culturally is I used to think about this on a weekly basis. Every time I go into Manchester or another city in the day, I always think, oh, well, this looks so different in the day. Like every town and city seems so
Yeah.
different in the day than the night. And that line, this town's a different town today, different town to what it was last night. You couldn't have done that on a Sunday. Is perfect. And also at the time, that girl's a different girl today than the one you kissed last night is also. I mean, we've all heard about post-nut clarity with men. That's all I'm saying. And Alex was saying it long before everyone was talking about it.
Exactly. Yeah. So, I mean, I just think this like selling this lyricist, this relatability, and also too, it's just a great song, but it does this version, it's kind of cute in a way because it does remind me. Okay, so it reminds me more of the first Beneath the Boardwalk version of Fake Tales, where his voice is quite rough in some places. I made some notes. When he says 10,000 eyes, he kind of like squeaks a little bit on specifically eyes in the line. He also, you can kind of tell he's running out of breath out of the first verse. When he says story to tell ya, it's like, oh, I mean, it's tough. And so it feels unpracticed.
Yeah.
It feels like it's a fresh new song that they're excited to kind of like put into recording, but the chorus lick of the guitar specifically sounds a lot more stiff. But yeah, it's still a great song though. I'm glad they re-recorded it.
I'll tell you what I do like about it, because I probably tend to agree with you, and I think I said on the episode that like Ritz wasn't one that I have a weird relationship with it, that I love parts of it, but other parts of it I'm a bit like meh with. But like what I like about this version is, so my favorite part of this song probably is when it comes in the second verse and it's like the drums are going and it's upbeat and it's it's the
This town's a different town.
Different town today. This town's a different town to what it was last night. Like I like that tempo, and the opening of this on the album is much more slower. It's a bit like When the Sun Goes Down in a way. Whereas I felt like on this version, it was instantly more upbeat from the opening. Like the drums are a bit more like ever so slightly. I felt a bit vibier straight away. But yeah, I probably think the album version is better too. The bass line is insanely good on this. Like it's a close call between this and Certain Romance, really, of what my favorite bass line on this album is. But Certain Romance. Yeah, Certain Romance is a great bass line. But probably this one. I really love that breakdown with the guitar as well, just playing on its own. And yeah, but this version is just ever so slightly not as good. I agree with you.
Yeah.
I would say.
Yeah.
There are different lyrics in
the
this. Isn't there?
bridge feels a little no, I don't think there's any different lyrics, not that I wrote down, but the bridge and the solo are just, but you have a cleaner version to listen to, so those things stand out more. Like I was listening to Beneath the Boardwalk today too. I was like, dancing shoes and I bet you look on the dance floor. I was like, oh my god, whoa, they really clean those up a lot. So I think it's the same thing with this. I think this is a newer song. It was never recorded on Beneath the Boardwalk. I think that they were just a little stiff with it, and but yeah, it's a good song though. It's one of my favorites off the album, honestly.
Yeah, I don't know what it's one of them that I have a weird. I think no, because I love the lyrics. I love the poignancy of the ones you were talking about then. And all that stuff about day and night and like you say, how anyone can relate to that. Because I was going to ask you actually, you bouncers, is the relationship the same with bouncers in America as they are here? Is it kind of a scary, tumultuous relationship as such?
Yeah, but it's different. So I would say the biggest difference is that the age she's singing at now would not be the age we're able to go to clubs, because in the States, 21 is the age for drinking. And so a lot of those bigger in clubs that you would need to wait for to go to, you would have to be 21 to get into anyways, which is a much older age and perception than what it is for you guys being that young. So I think it is a different perception there.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I was going clubbing at 17 because I had like fake IDs and stuff, but it was like, yeah, I get that. I probably makes sense to have it at 21 because you can handle that a lot more. But I guess, yeah, the sort of bouncers here, there is that kind of scariness to them. And you know what? I remember at the time, I just kind of read 1984 and I'd gotten into all that kind of stuff. And I was so impressed at totalitarian being used in a lyric. I was like, wow, how the fuck? And like that whole idea of the bouncer being part of like a totalitarian state, like it's his way or no way, that kind of thing is so clever, because it is like that with the bouncers here. It is like they have complete control of who gets in the club. And there's nothing you can do about it. There's nothing you can do about it. You can't go, can I see the manager? Like, it doesn't work like that. Like they have the control. If they want you gone, for looking at them the wrong way or not dressing the right way or whatever, then you're gone. And it's like, wow. And we used to, and this song would always be, because we'd have listened to the album and we'd be queuing for the club and you'd be, so it felt so, what's weird about this song is I'd say the upbeat tempo of the music captures the anticipation of trying to get in a club. Which is very kind of, whether it be intentional or unintentional, is very clever. I've said that quite a few times with them, that I feel like sometimes the music really perfectly encapsulates the mood, like some songs don't. But yeah, and that whole like, so swap jumpers make another move, does that really translate?
So yeah, where he's just like, he got rejected, so he's switching his clothes out with somebody else to hope that the bouncer doesn't recognize.
Yeah, I've done that. I've changed jacket. I've changed jacket with someone to try and get back in. And the Spooky Face and the Boys in Black. I don't even entirely sure what the Boys in Black is referring to. I think it's just kind of cool guys that are dressed all in black that go to the club. But yeah, and they do kind of get quite aggressive as well, which is, and they do what he's right in there, that they kind of want it to kick off, because the type of guys that become bouncers, the type of guys that become like, guys that got bullied at school and become police officers and do terrible things as police officers, like they're those kind of dudes, but they couldn't get in the police, so they're going to be bouncers, they're going to be dicks about it. And you got to also see it as an adult now, from their point of view, they're dealing with a load of drunk young idiots as well. So I kind of, now I'm older, I kind of have a little bit more of a perception, but I always think in that type of thing, there's no reason to be a dick though. You could be like level about it, But
Now,
yeah,
I have a British question for a question. So there is this line. I think it's written this way in the lyrics I'm looking at. So he says, he's got his hand in your chest. He wants to give you a duff. Duff. It is how it's written here. I'm not 100% clear on what a duff is.
that's quite funny. I feel like, yeah. No, Roger. Yeah, handling all these jingles we got now. So yes, so that basically means he's gonna grab your chest, your t-shirt by the chest, and duff means punch.
Oh, okay. There you go.
So
Give you
a duff is
He
a
wants to
hit. Give you a
punch.
duff.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Did you think he meant give you a duff beer from The Simpsons?
I honestly don't think I ever realized he said duff in that line. So what did I think? We can't be a person. Why can't he's got an just he wants to give you. I don't know what I thought he said, to be honest with you, until I read that line.
It's a weird one, right? I'm not entirely sure because so duff is used in very different ways in the UK, and even I wouldn't have said duff at that time. Like that might be a very Sheffield thing. And to be honest with you, I've taken it to mean that because that's like all it could mean because I've heard people use it since. But like over here we have like some people say it for like meaning arse, so they'll be like you duffs your arse. But I don't see how that would work in the song. Like he wants to give you an ass, and like and like we'll also say people up here say for being pregnant, get you up the duff. So if a girl's pregnant, we say she's up the duff. So it's used in very different ways here a lot. So, but I know that some people use it for like punch. But if anyone has got another insight on that, then please either reach out to us at social media or arcticmonkeyspodcast@gmail.com. Let us know your interpretation of it, as people usually do, or message us on Instagram. I love getting a little Instagram message with something insight that we can bring to a correction. We've got some stuff. We've actually at the start of Do I Want to Know, there's something from a listener from the electricity episode, a potential theory on one of the lyrics that we didn't say.
Okay, nice.
So that's interesting, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah, I think it means that basically, because then he talks about a fight after it, you know. So I've heard people say that I'm going to duff you. I mean, it's such a silly word for punch that like, we have so many different words for stuff here. It's insane. Colloquialisms locally is nuts. But yeah, yes. I think I have less to say about this one really, but I think it's interesting they chose two tracks that are easily transferable to any kind of country. I don't think that was on their mind at the time. It's interesting that they chose. Why do you think they chose these two tracks for this EP? Like Fake Tales, I get, but why do you think From the Rich to the Rubble, newly written, they were like that should go on with Fake Tales? Do you think it's because of that?
I think it's new, it's relatable, and it also highlights a different style of playing. That bass line is very distinct, and he's got that very fast pace, almost rapping style. And it's again, it's got that underdog feeling. I think that the crowd that they were generating to bring out these like massive crowds for the shows like would relate to this so much.
I think he was probably quite proud of the lyrics as well.
Yeah,
like
I think so.
You could
Or he should
arguably
be,
say, aside from noticeable exceptions, they've picked two of the best lyrical songs to put
that
on
they
here
had
from
at
the
the
album.
time. Yeah,
that they had at the time. Yeah, although Certain Romance is probably amazing, especially if you're from. I can't wait to get I'd love to do an episode on Certain Romance because it's so local to my particular growing up, my life, that it almost seems untranslatable to me, but I guess the concept is translatable, so it's an interesting one to me that to pick your brains on. But these episodes are basically me asking you, so did you understand this? But yeah, I love that as well. Got too deep, but how deep is too deep? That's an interesting line, isn't it? It's also that things you couldn't say, because there are things that I could never say when I'm sober that I might bring up when I'm drunk.
Or you want to say when you're drunk.
But then you're like, should I up there? The next day, like, should I have brought that though?
They didn't pick any of the poppy songs or specifically funny songs to be on here. I think it's calculated. I think they didn't do Dancing Shoes. They didn't do I Bet You Look Good on the Dance Floor. They didn't do Choo Choo. They didn't do I think these two are biting and relatable, and the lyrics are smart, and I think that's what they were selling at the
Yeah.
time. I think it was important for them to put
Bit
these
savvy.
two songs out. Yeah.
Pretty savvy because it was just them at this point, obviously. So
Yeah,
They knew-
I think it was
they knew what they
calculated
were
for that
doing.
way, yeah. Mhm.
yeah, because obviously it's famously they weren't calculated with the social media spread like they were attributed to at the time. But I think they were savvy in other ways. I think they've always been
Yeah,
savvy
yeah.
in other ways. Like I said, touring America slowly was savvy. You know, they knew how to do that. Yeah, I think they are pretty savvy with the old business side. The Arctics. But yeah, do you have anything else to say on this one?
No, not particularly, but I do really like it. And I think, you know what? I will say that this is a good one. That too with Fake Tales as well. Actually, I'll go ahead because I forgot to say this with Fake Tales. I think this applies with both songs. We talk about Alex as a singer and we talk about Alex as a lyricist, but it's really hard to write the way Alex does. Singers typically think in like melodies, or even if you're writing in hip hop, like this isn't necessarily easy to, neither of these songs are necessarily easy to sing or rap over. Like it's a very
Sure.
unique style that he taps into on top of writing fantastic lyrics. And I don't think that gets highlighted enough, especially from the first album, because people can be like, oh yeah, he used to do that cute little kind of like rapping thing. Like, but I mean, it's really hard with some of the way that these licks are written to write vocals over them, honestly.
Yeah, and I've always said that like he had to, and that's why sometimes he has to kind of make say words a bit different. Like it's very hard to put lyrics to this music when you think about it. But like I think the rapping thing is it like because it doesn't come across as like, you know, when like a rapper, you know, like when Dizzy Rascal raps over, it doesn't come across as rap over rock. It just comes across as a natural performance, which is impressive.
Yeah.
Rather than, oh, why is he rapping? And no one else really. And it is the reason it works. I think is it is a blend. To me, it's like they were into Roots Maneuver. I don't know if you know him, but he's basically a UK hip hop artist, a rapper that him and Matt were obsessed with. And he's kind of a blend of him and other hip hop rappers and Julian Casablancas. And it's like that mix of singing in that fast way Julian Casablancas does, then rapping as well. And it's blended into this amazing voice that's pretty unique. I haven't heard anything since, and I haven't heard anything very similar before either, really, in terms of the way he does it. So, I mean, I always felt like this first album was quite unique. I've never been able to hear music and go, oh, that sounds like that bit from, you know, but from before the album came out. Anyway, I think it was a unique sound. I think a lot of Favorite Worst Nightmare is a unique sound that I haven't heard much of before, you know? So yeah, it's cool. But yeah, I think from a point of view of this just being an anniversary one, again, go listen to the full Ritz the Rubble episode. That'll be season 1, episode like 12 or something like that.
So 12 plus 2, so 14. 14, I think.
You'll find it. It's called From the Ritz the Rubble. You'll find it. Series 1.
Yeah.
Go listen to that for some kind of in-depth one. But I think from the point of view of it being an anniversary, it is quite a significant anniversary. You know, from the band as a landmark, and 20 years is, when you think about the journey that we've all been on with them for 20 years, it's pretty nuts.
Yeah. And I think
like
fact that even 20 years later, some of these lines are still relatable, even if they're from a nostalgic sense of, I remember when I was that age. But like I said, literally, you could be a 7-year-old man and you can say the last night what we talked about made so much sense, and now the haze is in it. Like, that's just such a relatable line for anybody who's ever drank alcohol at least one time in their life.
Yeah, an 18-year-old could put particularly these two on and get it now. That's just started going out, you know. The only things on the album that haven't aged are like the technology references, like the phone, you know, press star to unlock and stuff. That's very of its time. So, but like, yeah, the ideals definitely. I imagine this is used by some young people now as a going out album. I like to think that have found them, that are into this kind of music. I hope it's not just all the 1975 for them. Please. But I look, 505 became a TikTok hit, didn't it? So they've obviously got a younger and Wanna Be Yours as well. So it's interesting. But I think it stands the test of time. It always will. It's definitely that, although AM is by far their biggest commercial album globally, this album is definitely their biggest impact on pop culture. This was like a landmark. If you were to go through the landmark moments of British musical history from the 60s, this is potentially the last big one we had that changed an entire generation. This is a generational album, and I'm not saying that as from a point of view of a biased fan. This genuinely was a generational album, just like Oasis's first album was. This changed everything here, and I don't think, and I'm not saying this from an older guy that doesn't get it, but I don't think there's been that album, because this was like on the news and stuff. This was like huge. They were everywhere. This was. I remember watching the news with my grandparents, and like the Dancefloor video was on like the evening news as like the biggest record ever, like of selling of British sales, and it was insane. Like it was nuts. So this is like,
and if you listen to my intro about how I found out about the band, so a British woman who was probably, if I had to guess, in her 40s or 50s, came to America and thought that this would be, it was so big, she thought this was a good gift to give her cousin in the States. Like, hey, this is the biggest band in Britain right now. You got to check this out. Yeah.
Yeah. It was a movement. It really was. And it was just one of those where like just every young person was like changed by it, or everyone that liked this kind of music anyway. But like you know that a band's really hit when like your mum knows about them. Do you know what I mean? That's kind of the when they don't have heard of them. But every generation has one. I would say probably 90s teenagers was Oasis, 80s teenagers was probably the Smiths, like that. Here in the UK, Northern working class heroes. You know, and then Arctic Monkeys are the next ones, which is why people get so upset with them for changing, because they were a northern working class hero, and if you stop being a northern working class hero, then you're scum. So you know, that's one thing we hate. So yeah, that's kind of, but they adapt. I would say, and I've said this loads of times, they've adapted musically in ways that no one else from any other generational band like that has. Like Oasis tried and failed and never really managed to change. Smiths never really changed. Arctic Monkeys have changed, whether you like it or not, and I do like it. They've changed significantly. Like I said, I can't think of many bands where their first album is huge, and then their fifth album is huge, and a completely different sound. Like it rarely happens. Bigger, yeah. It rarely happens. So, that's that, I guess. But I did just want to say our favorite lyric, although we might have already given that game away in our discussions, but let's see. Oh, we had the John Kennedys and we didn't bloody listen to them for the Fake Tales in this. Should we have a listen to them?
Yeah.
Bloody hell.
Too much to discuss over a bucket of balls.
We have two of the Monkeys with us tonight. We have Matt and Alex. Do you like being referred to as the Monkeys?
Better than the Arctics.
Better than the Arctics.
Fake Tales of San Francisco is the next track, the first official release, I guess, as part of 5 Minutes with the Arctic Monkeys. You said, I bet you look good on the dance floor, and Dancing Shoes were the two oldest songs. Where did Fake Tales come in?
That were on the demo after Dance Floor,
right?
And Bigger Boys. Yeah, that was like so that were on the same demo with Mardy Bum and Certain Romance,
right?
Which was like I think that was towards the end of 2004,
right?
Perhaps. Yeah.
And you've changed the words slightly for some stronger language. They were
live.
Not very good, and now they're
we know.
effing W.
Yeah, but I don't know if it is stronger, because I think if you were saying it and you were describing him, you would just say that like,
the way teenagers are
nonchalantly.
They're not. These band aren't very good. I'm really not having a good time. That's
what we'd say down south.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Even if you, I don't think it'd be that harsh if you said, they were.
Yeah. No, I wondered whether you'd thought about it and decided.
It was something we used to do live as well, wasn't it?
It was something we used to do.
It was more like passionate.
And then I remember there were a dispute whether we were going to leave it on or not. To be honest, I think that got forgotten about.
And then we just left it, so it could have not been there.
And
Yeah.
is there a specific band in question, or was this just a whole
number.
wave of bands that you just seem to
Yeah.
see around?
Oh yeah, that's it really.
Yeah.
Like an all sort of contingent. But yeah, no, it was making noises now. Go on. Hit the cough button.
It was just like a lot of bands that we played with because we were doing a lot of gigs, like not just in Sheffield and outside of Sheffield when we were first starting to play away from home, and so we were supporting as a band. So we were supporting people, the people were supporting us, and you just saw it all really.
Yeah.
Every cliche.
Do you think? I mean, it could happen where now, because of your success, everybody's going to try and pretend to be an Arctic Monkeys style band in terms of how
Maybe.
you dress and talk. And
Don't know.
it
Oh,
could-
no. They don't need to do anything special. How we dress and talk. Dress
I read
normally and
something
talk
over there that
normally.
said that we were like didn't have any style and that, which were a bit.
It's the cool thing about it, though, isn't it?
Is that how it works?
No.
All right.
No, I don't know. I don't know what is style.
Good question. How can you define these things? You've got your own style. It's all
Yeah,
right.
that's it.
And
original.
this is it. Fake Tales of San Francisco.
So interesting points on that. I always preferred Arctics in my. I always used to call them Arctics because I just always
really?
preferred. Yeah, I never really like saying the Monkeys because there's a band called the Monkeys. There's a famous band called the Monkeys.
yeah.
So I always like to call them Arctics, personally.
I always called them the Monkeys, but it would be in context of a clarification. I would just never start talking to somebody about saying.
Oh,
the
random, yeah.
Monkeys.
Well, yeah, that wasn't the
Yeah.
reason why, but I just always like at gigs, you like Arctics. Like I just always preferred that as a ring to it, but they hate it, so there you go.
The way my brain works, the thing I love the most about that interview was them breaking down that man. Okay, they released and wrote A Certain Romance, Fake Tales of San Francisco, and Marty Bum at the same time. Like those were paired together. Like, damn, what a run
know.
of writing he had, you know.
Yeah, it just goes to show. And I mean, I'd love to do an episode where I display my theories on certain stroke songs that influence them and how they correlate with the writing, because I do have a lot of theories on that. But yeah, Marty Bum is one as well that I have a theory on. But yeah, like what a collection of songs of. It's amazing that the first album works so well as a piece, isn't it? Really, with the sort of
Yeah, it
stuff on
is.
there. Yeah. But should we ever listen to the Rich John Kennedy?
Which is getting the Exposure album playback treatment tonight. The first ever debut album to get this treatment. We reserve this normally for people who've got, I don't know.
Who've got what?
More baggage, more experience, more, they're kind of more jaded probably, more over the hill. No, but
More to say.
Yeah, no. I think you're doing well, and I mean, but we couldn't resist doing this tonight. I mean, I'm really pleased that you came in. From the Ritz to the Rubble is the next track, which was actually the other side of 5 minutes with Arctic Monkeys. And let's do the chronological thing again. And how old is this in Arctic Monkeys terms?
Newer, like kind of. Yeah, that probably written. That were a new tune when we did it on the 5 minutes with thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's sort of kind of the bookend. If you're not like, if you've got the afternoon was the start, then the kind of morning after is the end of it. Like, I mean, and yeah, it's like it's more sort of like, and I think the second half of the record is more kind of where we're perhaps going in like, because we've got quite a lot of new tunes like since the album, and they more kind of sound like that sort of stuff, like that's on the second half maybe. Especially like Rich to the Rubble, I think that like opened a bit of a door for us to be able to. So it sounds a bit more dramatic than a lot of them in a way.
Yeah,
I don't know.
yeah. I mean,
Oh, I did actually cut that one early, right, yesterday, because they then go on a kind of discussion for ages about that wasn't relevant for this particular song, about the album tracks and stuff like that. It was a bit like, we don't need to listen to that for this, but
Yeah.
But I like that. I love that. I recognize so much of that northern self-deprecation when he says something to say, like he's like,
Yeah,
we're not
yeah.
very good at this, and he has to be reassured. That's so so northern. But yeah, interesting. They don't really talk about Rich the Rubble much on that, really, to be honest. They kind of just go on to the tracks stuff, don't they? But
But yeah,
Yeah.
that supported my, like, it sounded rougher, like it sounded like stiffer, like they were still learning it. They hadn't played it much, and the riffs were kind of, yeah, like not very familiar to them.
Yeah,
So that's
interesting, isn't it?
cool. That's really cool. Yeah.
Well, I forgot we normally bookend the John Kennedy bits, but we'll. This isn't the proper show, and there's normally only one. We'll bookend that. So let's say our favourite line from both songs. But actually, let me ask you a question first. Of the two songs, which do you prefer?
From the Reds to the Rebel.
So I'm saying Fate Tales. So
Yeah.
different opinions already.
Well,
This early
I
on in
guess.
the
Well, I
partnership.
guess if we're, I guess I mean, oh shit. Okay, if we're talking about the album, I would go Ritz, but I guess in this one, Ritz is too rough. So I guess for this release, Fake Tales is better to me. But in a general sense, I prefer the
Yeah, in a
song.
general sense.
Yeah, in a general sense, I prefer From the Ritz to the Rebel.
Yeah, so basically, in a general sense, you prefer It's the Rubble. On the EP, you prefer Fake Tales, but we both prefer the Fake Tales version over the album version on this.
Yes.
Whereas we both prefer the Rich of the Rubble album version over the 5 minutes version. So yeah, very different. Okay, well, let's say our favorite lyric then.
Too busy with the mind on clever lines.
So I'm gonna go with the Blind but Deaf line, as I said earlier, because I just think that of both, that's great. It's such a witty line.
It's like one of his all-time best lines. Yeah, it's probably the best line on the album. But yeah, it's up there. So me too. Yeah, there's nothing better.
We'll do our favorite musical one then.
Mad sounds in your ears. They make you get up and dance. They make you get up.
So I'm gonna say if it's a specific part of a song, I'm saying the bit when Fake Tales kicks in
With the drums.
with the blind but deaf.
Okay, I gotcha. Yeah,
Sorry,
okay.
not kicking from the beginning. Kicks in fast, I should say.
Gotcha. Okay.
But if it's a specific music like instrument from the song, then the bass, or it's the Rubble wins both songs. in my
Okay, yeah. I would also too not the rhythm guitar, but this is such a distinct line, like I said, the dum dun dum dun dun dun, that I think is a stamp of theirs, you had Teddy
Sure.
Picker and stuff like that. That's so distinct. That was something that like I try to mimic so much later that I would probably give it to just that lick because it's so distinct and so early them. It's simple but hard to sing over at the same time, but they make it work. So yeah.
Yeah, I think that tracks pretty well, but they are interesting, definitely musically. But I guess I've always thought those kind of Fake Tale type riffs, a lot of rap music does do that kind of thing with the sign of like beat, do you know what I mean? Kind
yeah.
of. So they kind of reinvented that for their own sound and then
For
rapped over
for
it, which is
indie.
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really cool. But yeah, so that's that then. I did prepare because this is the 30th of May. This is going out, and we are returning on Wednesday with Do I
Back
Want
to
to
the
Know for
regular
you
show.
all. Yeah, so I thought, as we won't get a chance to do it, usually the first track, that I did just have AI create a little intro for Do I Want to Know.
You push the button and we'll do the rest.
So this is the part of the show where I, if you're new, I ask the AI to write me a description of the next track that we're covering to see what it comes up with. And this is Do I Want to Know. Do I Want to Know is I can't even say it right now. Do I Want to Know is a slow, smoky striptease of a song. Desire drunk dialed at 2 a.m., dragging its knuckle down a black leather sofa. It's rock seduction at its most deliberate, sultry, wounded, and magnetic. The guitar riff stalks in like a panther, measured, hypnotic, and dangerous. It doesn't pounce, it prowls, circling your ribs, coiling tighter with every beat. Alex Turner's voice is a bedroom whisper laced with cigarettes and regret, crooning like he's leaning in close, brushing your ear with truths he's proud to say in the daylight. He's too proud to say In the Daylight, I should say. Lyrically, it's a confession caught between bravado and heartbreak. He's still picturing you in his t-shirt, still wondering if you're thinking of him when your guard drops. Every line teeters on that, the craving for connection, drowning in pride. It's the sound of pacing your room in the early hours, heart on the floor, mind in the gutter. You know it's bad for you, but you'd take another hit if she offered it with that smirk. Do I Want to Know is all hips, tension, and unspoken what-ifs. It's a love song dressed like a late-night mistake. Oh, that's a good line, isn't it? It's a love song dressed like a late-night mistake. These AIs are getting too good. And you hit and repeat, hoping she's listening too. Want me to do one in this? Oh, sorry. Oh, yeah, sorry.
Why it's been asking you the questions.
Yeah. So it asked me for the first time ever, and I didn't take it up on it, but I might do in the future. It asked me at the end, do you want me to do this in the style of a moody black and white French film? Which I thought was a really sort of telling one for Alex. But yeah. So okay.
Ooh, that's excited though.
I'm very excited. Yeah. I'm very excited. I'm very excited to listen to that on repeat. Eh?
Yeah.
Eh? See what I did there? That's our lyric alarm for any new listeners as well. So yeah, I'll see you next week, Justin. Thank you for spending 5 minutes with us. Well, not 5 minutes with us. But,
5 minutes with
5
minutes.
I was
plus,
actually
an hour and 20.
Yeah, well, that was the Q&A episode. We went with the middle of adventure is the perfect place to start. But I was also going to pose that we call it 5 minutes with Justin Toole.
Oh yeah, that's true.
But it wasn't 5 minutes, it was 90 minutes. Right, we're getting out of here. And we're going to see you guys for AM on Wednesday. Woo!
See you next week.
Don't Believe the Hype is hosted and produced weekly by Justin Toole and Dan Holt. The music used in the titles is royalty-free music courtesy of Les FM. Don't forget to subscribe on your podcast player of choice to be notified every Wednesday when a new episode is released. Sign up with us on Patreon to get exclusive content including coverage of The Last Shadow Puppets, Arctic Monkeys adjacent album reviews, and concert watch-alongs. If you want to help us out further, be sure to like and review to help make us more visible to like-minded souls. We'll see you next week with more of the same.